The eyes that see everything I watch through carefully half-closed lids as my husband of 7 years kissed another woman in our kitchen, his hand tangled in her hair with a passion he hadn't shown me since before the accident that supposedly stole my sight, except I'd be able to see perfectly for the last 3 months, and every tender word, every secret glance, every lie had been burning itself into my memory like acid on glass. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I am not blind, but my husband, Daniel Mitchell, doesn't know that. Neither does his mistress, Rebecca Thornton, my former best friend, the woman who held my hand through countless doctor's appointments, who helped me learn to navigate my own home in darkness, who sat beside my hospital bed and promised she'd always be there for me. She's been there for me, all right, in my bed, in my husband's arms, in the life I'd built before a drunk driver ran a red light and sent my car spinning into a telephone pole 18 months ago. I woke up in a hospital to Daniel's tear-stained face and the news that I'd suffered severe trauma to my optic nerves. The doctor said I'd never see again. Daniel held my hand and promised he'd take care of me forever. Rebecca sobbed and swore she'd help us through this nightmare. For 15 months, I believed them both. For 15 months, I lived in what I thought was darkness while they lived in what they thought was freedom. For 15 months, I let them dress me, guide me, make decisions for me, all while they conducted their affair right under my unseeing eyes. Except 3 months ago, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, I woke up and could see again. The doctors had said it was impossible, that the damage was permanent, irreversible. But sometimes, impossibly, miraculously, the human body heals itself in ways science can't explain. I opened my eyes in our bedroom, and instead of the darkness I'd grown accustomed to, I saw sunlight streaming through the curtains. I saw the ceiling fan Daniel had installed 2 years ago. I saw my own hand in front of my face. I could see. My first instinct was to scream for Daniel, to share the miracle, to celebrate this impossible gift. I sat up in bed, my heart racing with joy, ready to call out his name, and then I heard it, voices from downstairs. Daniel's voice, low and intimate, and Rebecca's voice, breathy and affectionate. I can't keep doing this, Daniel was saying, living this lie, pretending to be the devoted husband when all I want is to be with you. I know, baby, I know. Rebecca's voice was soothing, but we have to be patient. We can't just abandon her. She's blind and helpless. What would people think? What would people think? Daniel repeated bitterly. That's all this is about anymore. Appearances. I'm trapped, Becca. Trapped in a marriage to a woman I don't love anymore. Taking care of someone who can't even see me, who doesn't even know if I'm in the room half the time. The joy of regained sight evaporated, replaced by a cold, creeping horror. I got out of bed carefully, so carefully, and moved to the top of the stairs. After months of navigating by memory and touch, I knew every creak in the floorboards, every spot to avoid. I'd learned to be silent in my blindness. Now, I used that skill to spy on my own life. Through the banister, I could see them in the living room. Daniel had his arms around Rebecca. They were kissing with the desperation of people who've been denied too long. Just a little longer, Rebecca murmured against his lips. We just need to figure out the right way to handle this. Maybe we could suggest a care facility? Somewhere they specialize in helping blind people live independently. You mean somewhere we can dump her and not feel guilty about it, Daniel said, but he didn't sound opposed to the idea. He sounded hopeful. She'd probably be happier there anyway, Rebecca said, with people who understand her condition, who can help her in ways we can't. We'd be doing her a favor, really. I gripped the banister so hard my knuckles went white. I could see them, could see the blood draining away, and the sight of my own hand somehow made everything more real. They were planning to get rid of me. I stood there, frozen, watching my husband and my best friend plot my disposal like I was an inconvenient piece of furniture, watching them justify their betrayal with concern for my well-being. And I made a decision. I wouldn't tell them I could see. I would watch. I would learn. I would gather evidence of their affair, their plans, their lies, and when I was ready, when I had everything I needed, I would leave Daniel Mitchell in the most devastating way possible. I would make him think I was blind and helpless right up until the moment I walked out the door with half of everything he owned. So I went back to bed. I closed my eyes, and when Daniel came upstairs 20 minutes later, I pretended to wake up, reaching out with my hands like I always did, my eyes moving sightlessly across his face. "Good morning, sweetheart," he said, his voice saccharine sweet, the same voice that had been bitter with resentment moments ago. "How did you sleep?" "Fine," I said, keeping my eyes unfocused, staring past him. "Is Rebecca here?" I thought I heard voices. "Yeah, she stopped by to check on you." "She just left. You want me to help you downstairs for breakfast?" "Please." He took my arm and guided me slowly down the stairs, keeping up a steady stream of chatter about his day, his meetings, his plans. All of it lies, all of it performance. And I played my part perfectly. The helpless blind wife who needed him, who depended on him, who would never suspect what was happening right in front of her unseeing eyes. Except I could see everything, and I was going to make them both pay. The first week of my secret site was the hardest. Every instinct screamed at me to confront them, to throw what I knew in their faces, to rage and cry and demand answers. But I forced myself to stay calm, to maintain the facade, to play the long game, because confronting them immediately would accomplish nothing. Daniel would deny it, or worse, admit it and paint himself as a victim. Trapped in marriage to a disabled woman out of obligation, driven into another woman's arms by loneliness and desperation. Rebecca would cry and apologize and claim it just happened, that they never meant to hurt me, and I'd be left with nothing but anger and heartbreak, splitting assets in a messy divorce, while everyone whispered about the poor blind woman whose husband cheated on her. No, I wanted more than that. I wanted justice. I wanted them to feel the same shock and betrayal I'd felt. I wanted them to understand what it was like to be deceived by someone you trusted completely. So I started planning. First, I needed evidence. Solid, undeniable proof of the affair that would hold up in divorce court and in the court of public opinion. New York was a no-fault divorce state, but adultery could still affect the division of assets, especially given my disability and Daniel's role as my caretaker. I waited until Daniel left for work, kissing my forehead and reminding me to call if I needed anything, and then I opened my eyes, really opened them, looked around my house with seeing eyes for the first time in months. It was strange, disorienting even. I'd memorized the layout of every room, knew where every piece of furniture sat, could navigate the entire house in complete darkness. But seeing it was different. The colors were brighter than I'd remembered. The light was different. There were new things. A throw pillow on the couch I didn't recognize. A painting in the hallway I'd never seen. Evidence of Rebecca's influence. She'd been helping Daniel redecorate, to make the house easier for me to navigate. Now I could see she'd been making herself at home. I went to Daniel's office, a room I'd been told was too cluttered with work papers for me to safely navigate. The door was always locked when I was alone, but I'd heard him enter the code on the keypad lock dozens of times. My hearing had become acute during my months of blindness, acute enough to hear the specific beeps of each number. I entered the code. The door clicked open. Inside, Daniel's office was immaculate. No clutter at all. Just a desk, a computer, filing cabinets. And on the desk, in a frame that hadn't been there before my accident, a photo of Daniel and Rebecca. They were on a beach somewhere, laughing, his arm around her waist. Happy, in love. The date stamp in the corner read from 6 months ago. 6 months into my blindness. They'd already been together long enough to take romantic vacations. I pulled out my phone, the one with the special accessibility features Daniel had so thoughtfully set up for me, and took pictures of everything. The framed photo, the papers on his desk that showed he'd been researching long-term care facilities for the blind, the emails on his computer that I accessed using the password I'd heard him type countless times. The emails were damning. Hundreds of them between Daniel and Rebecca, going back almost a year. They'd started their affair only months after my accident. I can't stop thinking about last night. One of Rebecca's emails read, "Being with you feels like coming home. I know the situation is complicated, but Daniel, I love you. I probably always loved you. I love you too," Daniel had written back. "You have no idea what it means to have someone who sees me as more than just a caretaker, more than just an obligation. Sarah needs me. but she doesn't see me. Not really. She can't. But you do. The bitter irony of that statement wasn't lost on me. Sarah doesn't see me. If he only knew. I spent 3 hours going through everything. Printing emails, copying files, taking photographs, building my case like a prosecutor preparing for trial. And then I heard a key in the front door. Rebecca, she had a key to my house. Of course she did. She was my best friend, my helper, the person who checked on me every day while Daniel was at work, the person who was sleeping with my husband. I shut down the computer, returned everything to its place, and slipped out of the office, locking the door behind me. By the time Rebecca called out, "Sarah, it's me." I was in the living room, sitting on the couch with my eyes closed, facing the television that I supposedly listened to rather than watched. "Hey!" Rebecca's voice was bright, cheerful. "I brought lunch. That Thai place you used to love, I got your favorite. Pad CEW, used to love. As if my blindness had somehow changed my taste buds. "That's so sweet of you," I said, keeping my eyes unfocused, directed toward her voice but not quite at her. "You're always so thoughtful." "Of course. That's what best friends are for." She sat down next to me, and I could smell her perfume. Expensive, sophisticated. The same perfume that had been lingering on Daniel's clothes lately. "So, how are you feeling today? Daniel said you seemed a little down this morning." Daniel had said no such thing. I'd been perfectly fine at breakfast. But this was how they operated. Creating narratives, building a case for why I might need professional care. "I'm okay," I said carefully. "Just tired, I guess. Some days are harder than others." "I know, sweetie. I know." She rubbed my shoulder, and it took everything in me not to flinch away. "Have you thought any more about what Daniel mentioned? About maybe visiting some of those facilities for people with vision impairment? Just to see what they're like, what kind of programs they offer." "He mentioned it." I said neutrally, "I think it could be really good for you. You'd be around people who understand what you're going through. You could learn new skills, become more independent." She squeezed my hand. "I know you don't want to be a burden on Daniel forever." A burden. That's what I'd become in their narrative. Not a wife who'd suffered a tragic accident. Not a woman who was doing her best to adapt to a devastating disability. A burden to be shifted onto someone else. "I'll think about it," I said, and left it at that. We ate lunch together. Rebecca describing everything on my plate like I was a child, cutting my food into small pieces, helping me bring the fork to my mouth even though I'd been perfectly capable of feeding myself for over a year. But today I let her do it. Let her play the devoted friend. Let her think I was helpless and dependent and completely unaware of what was happening around me. Because every moment of her performance was another nail in the coffin of their relationship. Every condescending word, every pitying touch, every lie was more ammunition for when I finally revealed the truth. After lunch, Rebecca left to run errands, promising to check on me again tomorrow. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I opened my eyes and got to work. I called a divorce attorney. Not just any attorney, but one I'd researched carefully, one who specialized in high-conflict divorces and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless on behalf of her clients. Stephanie Chen's office, the receptionist, answered. "Hi, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I'd like to schedule a consultation with Ms. Chun. It's a complicated case, and I need someone who can handle that complexity." "Of course. Can you tell me briefly what the case involves?" I took a deep breath. My husband is having an affair with my best friend. They both think I'm blind, but I regained my sight 3 months ago. I've been documenting everything while they plan to have me committed to a care facility, so they can be together. I need help destroying them both. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. Then, "Ms. Chen is going to want to meet with you immediately. How's tomorrow at 10 a.m.? "Perfect." I hung up feeling lighter than I had in months. Finally, I was taking action. Finally, I was fighting back. The rest of that first week, I continued my double life. Blind Sarah who needed help with everything, who smiled gratefully when Daniel guided her around obstacles, who thanked Rebecca for her constant support, and seeing Sarah, who documented every lie, Every secret meeting, every whispered phone conversation when they thought I couldn't hear. I watched Daniel kiss Rebecca goodbye at the front door before leaving for work, only to circle back 20 minutes later and slip into the house through the garage, spending his lunch break in bed with her. I watched Rebecca help me pick out clothes, suggesting outfits that were frumpy and unflattering, slowly transforming me into someone who looked as helpless as they wanted to believe I was. I watched them exchange meaningful glances over my head during dinner, watched them touch casually. A brush of hands, a lingering look, confident that I couldn't see. Every moment was torture. Every lie scraped against my soul like broken glass. But I endured it, because I knew that every moment of their betrayal was building toward their ultimate reckoning, and I was going to enjoy watching them fall. My meeting with Stephanie Chin changed everything. She was in her late 40s, sharply dressed, with eyes that missed nothing. Her office was filled with books on family law and framed articles about high-profile cases she'd won. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said, shaking my hand firmly, "thank you for coming in. I have to say, your case is one of the most unusual I've heard in 20 years of practice. I assume that's a good thing?" She smiled, and it was the smile of a shark. "It's an excellent thing. Your husband and his mistress have no idea what's coming, which gives us an enormous tactical advantage. Now, tell me everything." I did. I told her about the accident, the diagnosis, the months of darkness. I told her about waking up with my sight restored and what I'd heard. I showed her the evidence I'd gathered, the photos, the emails, the documents about care facilities. Stephanie reviewed everything with the careful attention of a surgeon examining an X-ray. "This is very good," she finally said. "Very thorough. The emails alone prove adultery. The documents about committing you to a facility could be construed as a form of emotional abuse, especially given your vulnerable state, and the fact that your supposed best friend is involved." She shook her head. "That's going to play very badly for them in court and public opinion. What do we do next?" "We continue gathering evidence, but we do it more strategically. I'm going to have you hire a private investigator, someone who can document their meetings, their interactions, without you having to witness it firsthand." "I want to witness it," I said firmly. "I need to see everything, understand everything, so that when I finally confront them, they can't lie their way out of it." Stephanie studied me. "You understand that this is going to be emotionally brutal? That watching your husband betrayal day after day could be psychologically damaging? More damaging than living blind while they betrayed me? More damaging than being treated like a burden to be disposed of?" I shook my head. "I've already been through the worst of it. Now I want justice." "All right, then here's what we're going to do." She pulled out a legal pad and began making notes. "First, we're going to set up a separate bank account in your name only. I want you to start documenting every penny of marital assets, accounts, investments, property, everything. New York is an equitable distribution state, which means assets should be divided fairly. But given your disability, I'm not disabled anymore." I interrupted. "But they don't know that, and that's crucial. As far as the court is concerned at the start proceedings, you're a blind woman who's been betrayed by her husband and caregiver. That's going to generate enormous sympathy and could affect the asset distribution significantly." She continued outlining the strategy. I would continue playing blind while secretly documenting everything. We'd wait until we had absolutely ironclad evidence, enough that Daniel couldn't possibly fight the divorce settlement Stephanie planned to pursue. "I want the house," I said. "It was my grandmother's house. I inherited it before we married. He moved into my house, into my life, and now he wants to throw me out of it." "Then we'll make sure you keep it," Stephanie promised. "What else do you want?" "Everything. I want him to lose everything, his reputation, his assets, his comfort. I want him to understand what it's like to have your whole life pulled out from under you. Consider it done." She smiled that shark smile again. "Mrs. Mitchell, by the time we're finished, your husband is going to wish he'd never met you. Over the next month, I became an actress worthy of an Oscar. Every morning, I woke up blind. Every morning, Daniel helped me dress, guided me downstairs, made breakfast while telling me about his busy day at work. Work that I knew consisted mostly of extended lunch breaks with Rebecca. I have a late meeting tonight. He'd say, casually, probably won't be home until 8 or 9. Okay, I'd respond sweetly. Rebecca said she'd come by and make dinner with me anyway. We're going to try that new recipe she found. And I'd watch his face, really watch it, and see the flash of relief. Relief that his blind wife would be occupied with his mistress, while he did whatever he planned to do. Relief that I was so oblivious, so helpless, so easy to deceive. Rebecca and I had become closer than ever in her mind. She stopped by every day, sometimes multiple times. She'd hold my hand and tell me how strong I was, how brave. She'd suggest activities we could do together. Audio books we could listen to, recipes we could make with me, helping in limited ways. You know, Sarah, she said one afternoon as we sat in my living room, I'm so grateful we're such good friends. I know this hasn't been easy for you, losing your sight, but I want you to know that I'll always be here for you. Always. The lies rolled off her tongue so smoothly, and I smiled and squeezed her hand and said, I don't know what I'd do without you, Becca. You've been my rock through all of this. That's what friends are for. Inside, I was screaming. But outside, I was a picture of blind, trusting gratitude. The private investigator Stephanie hired, a woman named Maria Cortez who specialized in infidelity cases, was earning every penny. She documented Daniel and Rebecca meeting at hotels during his work hours. She photographed them having romantic dinners at restaurants across town, places they thought were far enough from our neighborhood that no one would recognize them. She even caught them house hunting in Connecticut, looking at a charming colonial that would be perfect for starting fresh. Starting fresh. Like I was someone to be left behind, disposed of, forgotten. Every piece of evidence went into a file that was growing thicker by the day. Every lie was documented, time-stamped, prepared for the moment when I would finally reveal the truth. But the hardest part wasn't the lying or the acting. It was maintaining my composure when they discussed me like I wasn't there. One night, I was upstairs supposedly asleep when they sat in my living room discussing their future. I've been thinking, Daniel said, maybe we don't need to wait until Sarah's settled in facility. Maybe we could just tell her about us, ask for a divorce. And what? Rebecca's voice was sharp. Leave her to fend for herself? Daniel, she's blind. She can't live alone. We look like monsters. We kind of are monsters, Daniel said quietly. We're lying to her every day. Having an affair while I'm supposed to be taking care of her. You are taking care of her. You're still here, still playing a devoted husband. You're doing more than a lot of men would do in this situation. I don't love her anymore, Becca. I don't know if I ever really loved her the way I love you. Being with her feels like playing a role. But with you, I'm myself. Then let's be smart about this, Rebecca urged. A few more months. We'll get her set up somewhere safe, somewhere she'll be taken care of. Then we can be together without guilt, without everyone judging us. Without everyone judging us, Daniel repeated. Is that really what this is about? Public perception? It's about doing this the right way. Rebecca's voice rose. I love you, Daniel. I want to be with you. But I'm not going to be the villain in this story. I'm not going to be the woman who stole a blind woman's husband and left her helpless. Listening to them rationalize their betrayal, convince themselves they were being compassionate, was almost more than I could bear. But I stayed silent, stayed still, let them believe I was peacefully sleeping upstairs while they planned my disposal. The next morning, Daniel was extra attentive at breakfast. Sarah, honey, I've been thinking, maybe we should take a trip together. Just the two of us, like old times. A trip? I kept my voice carefully neutral. Where? I don't know. Somewhere relaxing. A cabin in the mountains, maybe, or a beach. Somewhere you can just rest. You've been so strong through all of this, and I feel like I haven't been appreciating that enough. Guilt. He was feeling guilty about what he'd said last night, about admitting he didn't love me. So now he was overcompensating, playing the devoted husband harder than ever. That sounds nice, I said, even though the thought of being alone with him made my skin crawl. When were you thinking? I'm not sure yet. Let me look at my schedule. But soon, I promise. The trip never happened, of course. Something always came up, a work deadline, an emergency meeting, a reason why it would have to wait. And I pretended to be disappointed while secretly relieved. 2 months into my secret site, I attended a support group for people with vision loss. Rebecca drove me, holding my arm as she guided me into the community center. "This is going to be so good for you," she said encouragingly. "Meeting other people who understand what you're going through." What she didn't know was that the support group was actually a meeting with my attorney and a forensic accountant Stephanie had hired. We met in a private room away from the actual support group meeting. "Mrs. Mitchell," the accountant said, "I've been reviewing your husband's financial records, the ones you're able to access, and there are some interesting irregularities." "What kind of irregularities?" "He's been moving money, significant amounts, transferred out of your joint accounts into accounts that aren't in either of your names. At first glance, it looks like investment diversification, but the pattern suggests he's hiding assets in preparation for a divorce." My stomach dropped. "He's planning to leave me with nothing." "He's planning to leave you with as little as possible," Stephanie corrected. "But because you've been documenting everything, because we know what he's doing, we can counter it. I'm filing a motion to freeze all marital assets the moment we file for divorce. He won't be able to move another penny without court approval. How much has he hidden?" The accountant slid a paper across the table. The number made my head spin. $250,000. I breathed. "He's hidden $250,000? "That we've found so far," the accountant said grimly. "There may be more." I'm still tracing the transactions. "We've got him," Stephanie said with satisfaction. "Financial fraud, adultery, potential emotional abuse through his plans to institutionalize you. Sarah, when we're done, your husband is going to lose everything." After the support group, Rebecca drove me home, chattering about how proud she was of me for taking the step toward independence and healing. "You seem different after the meeting," she observed. "Lighter somehow. I think this is really helping." "It is," I agreed, and it was the first completely honest thing I'd said to her in months. That night, Daniel came home late, claiming he'd been working. I could smell Rebecca's perfume on him, could see, through my supposedly blind eyes, the slight smudge of her lipstick on his collar. "How was your day?" he asked, kissing my forehead like he always did, like he hadn't spent the evening with another woman. "Good." Rebecca took me to a support group. It was nice to talk to other people who understand. "That's great, honey. I'm so glad you're finding ways to cope." He sat down next to me, taking my hand. "Sarah, I want you to know that I'm proud of you. You've handled this whole situation with such grace." Grace. He thought I was graceful. He had no idea I was methodically plotting his destruction. "Thank you," I said softly. "That means a lot." He squeezed my hand, and I let him, even though his touch made my skin crawl, because I was playing a long game, because revenge is a dish best served cold, and mine was going to be absolutely frigid. 3 months into my secret site, things began to escalate. Daniel and Rebecca were growing careless, confident that I suspected nothing. Their affair was becoming more brazen. One afternoon, I heard them in our bedroom. My bedroom. In the bed I'd shared with Daniel for 7 years. They were together while I was supposedly downstairs listening to an audiobook. I sat in the living room, hearing everything, seeing nothing as far as they knew. My hands clenched into fists so tight my nails drew blood from my palms. This was different from knowing intellectually that they were having an affair. This was hearing it happen in my own home, in my own bed, while they thought I was too blind and stupid to know. I wanted to storm upstairs, wanted to throw open the door and watch their faces drain of color as they realized I could see, wanted to scream in rage and make them feel an ounce of the pain they'd inflicted on me. But I didn't, because I was so close. The evidence was nearly complete. Stephanie was almost ready to file. Just a little longer, I told myself. Just hold on a little longer. After they finished, I heard them in the shower together, laughing, talking, completely at ease. Then Rebecca left the back door, and Daniel came downstairs, freshly showered, smelling like body wash instead of her perfume. "Hey, sweetheart," he said cheerfully. Sorry I was upstairs so long. Had to take care of some work stuff. No problem, I said, my voice amazingly steady. Did you get all done? Yeah, all done. He kissed my forehead. What do you want for dinner? The casual nature of his lies was almost impressive. If I hadn't known better, I'd never suspect anything was wrong. He was that good at deception. Or maybe I'd just been that blind in more ways than one. That evening, I made a decision. I was done playing a long game. I had enough evidence. More than enough. It was time to end this. I called Stephanie from my cell phone while Daniel was in the shower. File the papers. I told her. File them tomorrow. I'm done watching this. Are you sure? We could wait another week or two. Make absolutely certain. I'm certain. I have video of them together in my home. I have financial records of him hiding assets. I have emails, photos, witness statements from the private investigator. What more do we need? Nothing, Stephanie admitted. We have an airtight case. All right, I'll have the papers drawn up tonight. We'll file first thing in the morning. But Sarah, you need to understand, once we file, there's no going back. Things are going to get ugly very quickly. Good, I said coldly. I want ugly. I want them to hurt the way I've hurt. Then consider it done. I'll call you tomorrow after we file. And Sarah, get ready. This is going to be the performance of your life. She was right about that. The next morning, I woke up blind as usual. Daniel helped me dress, guided me downstairs, made breakfast. Everything normal, everything routine. He had no idea that in a few hours, his entire world was going to implode. Rebecca stopped by mid-morning with coffee and pastries. Hey, she said brightly, I thought we could have a girls' morning. Maybe do our nails or something fun. That sounds great, I said, smiling at her, at my former best friend who was sleeping with my husband, at the woman who thought I was too disabled to fight back. We sat in my living room, and she painted my nails a soft pink while chatting about her plans for the weekend. Her plans that almost certainly involved my husband. My phone rang. Wanted to get that. Rebecca asked, please. She picked up my phone, glanced at the screen. It says Stephanie Chan. Is that someone from the support group? Oh, yes. She said she might call. Can you put it on speaker for me? Rebecca hit the button. Hello, Mrs. Mitchell? Stephanie's voice was professionally neutral. This is Stephanie Chan. I'm calling to inform you that the papers have been filed. The process server should be arriving at your home within the hour. Rebecca's face went confused. Papers? What papers? And then it happened. The doorbell rang. I'll get it, Rebecca said, still holding my phone, still confused. I heard her open the door. Heard the process server say, I'm looking for Daniel Mitchell. Is he home? No, he's at work. What's this about? I have divorce papers that need to be delivered. Are you Rebecca Thornton? The silence was deafening. Ah, yes. Why? Then these are for you, too. I stood up, opened my eyes. Really opened them, looking directly at Rebecca for the first time in months with clear, seeing eyes. Hello, Becca, I said. The look on her face was everything I'd imagined and more. Shock, horror, confusion. Slowly dawning realization. Sarah, your eyes, you're looking at me. You can see. I've been able to see for 3 months, I said calmly. Since the morning I woke up and heard you and Daniel planning my disposal. Since the morning I regained my sight and decided to watch exactly what you both were doing behind my back. She dropped the papers. Literally dropped them, her hands going limp with shock. You've been able to see this whole time? Every moment, every lie, every betrayal. I watched you come into my home and play the concerned friend while sleeping with my husband. I watched Daniel kiss you at the front door before leaving for work. I heard you in my bedroom, in my bed. My voice was steady, cold. I've seen everything, Rebecca, everything. Sarah, I can explain. No, I interrupted. You can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. You were my best friend. I trusted you with everything. My fears, my struggles, my life. And you used that trust to steal my husband. I didn't steal him. We fell in love. Sarah, it just happened. It just happened. I laughed, and the sound was brittle. It just happened that you fell in love with my husband while I was blind and helpless? It just happened that you discussed putting me in a care facility so you could be together? It just happened that you betrayed me in every way possible? Rebecca's face crumpled. I'm sorry. God, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. You hurt me every single day. And now you're going to face the consequences. My phone rang again. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. The process server had clearly found him at work. I answered on speaker. Sarah? His voice was panicked, furious. What the hell is going on? Some guy just served me with divorce papers. And papers for a restraining order? Sarah, what is this? Hello, Daniel. I said calmly. Did the process server explain that you're being sued for divorce on grounds of adultery? What are you talking about? Sarah, you can't. How did you even? He stopped. Wait. Why do you sound different? Why aren't you? Why aren't I calling out for help? Why aren't I confused and scared? I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. Because I'm not blind anymore, Daniel. Haven't been for 3 months. I've been watching you. Watching both of you. Documenting everything. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next emotional story. Please like and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. See you in the next episode.